Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday, live from Boulder, Colorado. Mitch, Harper, and Kyle Ireland with you. Let's take a look around the Big 12 Conference this week. Week 5 action in the deepest conference in America. We had some crazy games last night on a Friday in the Big 12. TCU was up 14-0 on Arizona State, but the Sun Devils stormed back. They won 27-24, continue to activate the Valley. The Sun Devils are now 8-3 in games decided by one possession over the last 2 seasons. ASU gets a big win. They're now 2-0 in league play, Kyle.
Yeah, we talked about them last week, Mitch, as maybe Texas Tech and TCU is possibly the 2 best teams in this league. And I don't know. I'm confused about this league every single week because something changes. And now is Arizona State back after, they suffered a loss a few weeks ago on the road in SEC territory, but undefeated in Big 12 play, 2-0 now. And then you had Houston, who followed that up with a comeback win on the road against a totally defeated 0-5 Oregon State team to stay undefeated at 4-0. This league just
overtime win too.
An overtime win, yeah. And I think that this league is just such an exciting brand of football, Mitch. There's always a surprise. There's always a shock. Every single week something crazy happens, and it was fun having those 2 Big 12 games on a Friday night to be able to watch and get ready for a big slate today.
Yeah, we had a miserable flight experience coming into Denver. It got to the point where probably should have just drove from Salt Lake to Denver with all the flight delays. It's why are we getting delayed? So we didn't get in until late last night. So we get home and to our hotel to watch the games, and we even went to a sports bar to watch the Houston-Oregon State game. And, yeah, Houston pulled that out 27-24. Right now, we're watching Kansas and Cincinnati, which has been a heck of a game. When you talk about brand of football in the Big 12, it is an entertaining brand, and Cincinnati and Kansas are living up to that. 30-27, 8:02 left in the fourth quarter. The Bearcats are up on the Jayhawks, and it gets me thinking, too, Kyle. Cincinnati is interesting. BYU plays them coming up on November 22nd. You look at, I think, this tonight against Colorado, next week against West Virginia, I feel are games BYU should win. They're going to be favorites. From October 11th to November 15th, Arizona, starting with that game all the way to TCU November 15th, that is a gauntlet of a schedule. But then there's a tough game, too, November 22nd at Cincinnati. This schedule's really tough for BYU this season, but I just think something to take note because I think Cougar fans on the surface will look at Cincinnati and say, they're nothing to worry about. No, they're pretty good. They're explosive. They're going to be a team to watch, and let's see if they can break through and take down Kansas in Lawrence. And then also in the Sunflower State, Kansas State, looking for what I would believe would be their first win this season. I know they beat North Dakota barely, but it feels like it's been a winless team this season for K-State. They're up 31-17 on UCF, who's 3-0. 10:21 to go in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, currently 6 teams left in the Big 12 that are undefeated. UCF is one of them, and that's BYU's last game of the regular season too there, Mitch. And so you mentioned that stretch where, hey, maybe it's like a letdown after that TCU game, but to face Cincinnati and UCF, it could be just a solid opponent every single week from here on out after the West Virginia game. And I think that, I don't want to overlook Colorado as well because this game tonight, it's the same kind of thing that I felt last week against East Carolina. It's like BYU is the better team on paper, but they need to go out and they need to handle their business because any of these teams in the Big 12, you look at Kansas State, that game, for instance, they're up 2 scores right now over UCF. You would go into today and you'd be like, oh, UCF's going to beat Kansas State. You would just think that based off of the way that the Wildcats have started off their season, but they're up 2 scores late in that game.
Looking at the ACC last night, Florida State loses to Virginia. Oh, Florida State beat big, bad Alabama. So naturally they're going to beat Virginia, right? No, I mean, college football is so hard to predict week after week now. There's no elite teams in this sport. And anything can happen really on any given week, and I think that's why college football, I think, is becoming a more entertaining product as the years go by. Other action in the Big 12 that has yet to kick off today, Coming up at 1:30, Utah on the road at West Virginia. I think the Utes cruise in that one. You think Utah has any snowball effect from last week's loss to Texas Tech? Think they fall to West Virginia, or do you think they bounce back this week?
No, I think Utah bounces back against West Virginia today. They'll rebound. I think that game they were so hyped going into that game, but Texas Tech I think is for real, Mitch. Like, that is a good football team, and they're going to be a tough one for anybody on that schedule. But yeah, West Virginia shouldn't be as much of a test there for the Utes. And then you've got Arizona taking on Iowa State in Ames tonight. I think that'll be a good game as well, Mitch. Both of those teams are undefeated.
Well, also at 1:30 as well, Baylor and Oklahoma State, and Oklahoma State just fired Mike Gundy. So curious to see if Oklahoma State has any sort of effort left in their season on the heels of letting go of Mike Gundy, which had to happen. Mike Gundy's a legend in the Big 12, but it was time. When you lose to Tulsa, out you go. And that opening now, for the first time since 2005, Oklahoma State has an opening at their head coach spot. And, yeah, that Arizona-Iowa State game, number 14 Cyclones, 4-0 overall, 1-0 in the Big 12. I'm calling the upset. I think Arizona wins that game. I love Arizona's defense. I think they can play in a rock fight with Iowa State if it becomes that. I think Arizona's also got a pretty decent offense, too, with that new offensive staff they've got under Brent Brennan. I'm going with Arizona to pull the upset. What say you? You got the Cyclones or the Wildcats?
Oh, man. Iowa State's so tough at home, Mitch. I think that I'm going to go with Iowa State on that one. They're an interesting team because I think that maybe, it was that Arkansas State game that maybe swayed me a little bit. They didn't look great in that game, but to pick up a big win earlier in the season against Kansas State and then to beat Iowa in a rivalry game, I think they're finding their footing. And Rocco Beckett, I think, is an excellent quarterback in this league. And so, when you talk about Big 12 football, it really does come down to quarterback play and how well these quarterbacks are performing week to week.
Kansas is in the red zone against Cincinnati with about 4:55 to go in the fourth quarter. We'll keep tabs on that noteworthy Big 12 game throughout the day. But coming up next here on Cougar Sports Saturday, we'll hear from BYU defensive tackle coach Sione Buha. He gets an additional reinforcement to that defensive tackle unit today as Justin Kirkland is going to play for the Cougars. We'll talk to Coach Buha next here on BYU Colorado Game Day on Cougar Sports Saturday.